A stunning new report by researchers at Harvard has revealed the death toll from Hurricane Maria may be 70 times higher than the official count.
53 cents of every discretionary dollar spent in this government, this federal government, is spent on war.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 30 cable stations from Maine to New York City. Remember after Hurricane Maria, when President Trump finally went to Puerto Rico and proclaimed that the death toll there was very low? Well, scientists at Harvard University did a study, and their findings are very different.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. We begin today's show in Puerto Rico. A stunning new report by researchers at Harvard has revealed the death toll from Hurricane Maria may be 70 times higher than the official count. The official death toll still stands at 64. But the new research says the death toll is at least 4,645 and perhaps as many as 5,740. The Harvard study was published Tuesday in the New England Journal of Medicine.
President Trump has so far not responded to the new study, but in October, during a visit to Puerto Rico, Trump boasted about the low official death count.
Now, I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine. We've saved a lot of lives. If you look at the, every death is a horror, but if you look at a real catastrophe like Katrina, and you look at the tremendous hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that died, and you look at what happened here with really a storm that was just totally overpowering. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. Now, what is your death count as of this moment? 17?
16 certified.
16 people certified. 16 people versus in the thousands. You can be very proud of all of your people, all of our people working together. 16 versus literally thousands of people.
With a death toll of at least 4,645, Hurricane Maria would become the second deadliest hurricane in U.S. history, behind only the Galveston hurricane of 1900, which killed as many as 12,000 people in Texas. The Harvard study surveyed almost 3,300 randomly selected Puerto Rican households and found mortality rates leaped 62% from September 20th through the end of 2017.
Remember, the study's numbers only go through December of 2017. Hundreds of thousands were without electricity well into 2018. So the death toll certainly was higher. By the way, Media Matters did a study about how this scandal was reported on 3 major networks compared to the time they spent on Roseanne's racist tweets. Minutes compared to hours. Of course, her record of fascist, bigoted thoughts should be exposed. But with Puerto Rico, we're talking with at least 4,600 deaths. Much worse than Hurricane Katrina. We're talking about a titanic level of incompetence and looting that left the island wide open for this disaster. Of course, the growing power of hurricanes is tied up with our reckless use of fossil fuels. The group Extreme Energy is planning actions June 23rd to June 25th. They provide this short video to clear up myths about the benefits of so-called natural gas.
So is natural gas a clean alternative?
If extracted safely, it's the bridge fuel that can power our economy with less of the carbon pollution that causes climate change.
No, fracked gas is a double whammy for the climate.
Increasing the availability of natural gas supplies in the region is important to the economy and the environment. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline will provide a cleaner source of fuel.
Natural gas is 90% methane, a climate-changing greenhouse gas that is 86 times more potent than CO2.
The project will mean cleaner air in the region, as state-of-the-art natural gas plants replace coal plants from the 1950s and 60s.
Gas leaks from natural gas wells, pipelines, compressor stations, and every part of the supply chain, releasing methane into the atmosphere.
Natural gas, as you know, has much lower emissions than coal.
Once the gas gets where it's going, it still has to be burned, where it releases CO2. This, combined with all the leakage, makes natural gas as bad or worse for the climate as burning coal. To stop climate change, coal, gas, and oil reserves need to be kept in the ground. This means an immediate halt to all new gas power plants, wells, pipelines, and other extreme energy infrastructure. It also means phasing out existing fossil fuel infrastructure and replacing it with renewable energy. Amazingly, FERC ignores the climate change impacts of natural gas when it considers new projects. This is a huge problem because natural gas now surpasses coal in producing electricity for the United States. And all of the new gas infrastructure being built now is planned to be used for at least the next 40 years. Can we afford FERC approving another 40 years of fossil fuel infrastructure at a moment when we need to be rapidly shifting to wind, solar, and energy efficiency?
Palestine, an update about a past news story. Layla al-Ghaddour's name was removed by the Palestinian Health Ministry from a list of recent martyrs. The 8-month-old child in Gaza had been reported as having died from tear gas inhalation, and her family very visibly blamed Israel for her death. On May 24th, the Palestinian Health Ministry exclaimed that the baby had suffered from a serious heart condition for some time, and the death needed more investigation. In other words, it hasn't yet been determined if tear gas was a contributing factor in her death. A final report has not yet been issued. So let's assume she died from natural causes. Israel then killed for sure only 112 people during the Great March of Return and injured 13,000. And this tweet from an Israeli government minister, Steinetz Yuval, who's in charge of energy and water resources. A reporter for the Israeli newspaper Haaretz translates from the Hebrew his remarks on Gaza. Steinetz, he says, does not rule out the possibility of reconquering Gaza and finishing it once and for all. Once and for all. You understand that language, don't you? Final solution. Extermination. Holocaust. Once and for all. Let's see if the ADL or the Jewish Federations condemn Steinetz, or make excuses, or say nothing at all. Final note on Palestine. My article about Ruger sniper rifles and Israel has just appeared in the New Haven Register. To read it, go to the Register's website or to thestruggle.org. 50 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. started his Poor People's Campaign. We are in the midst of a nationwide revival of that effort. This from Hartford, Connecticut.
Down by bullets and guns, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, gonna lay down by bullets and guns, down by the riverside. There is justice somewhere. You can clap your hands. There is justice somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is justice somewhere. There is peace and love somewhere.
And over the last several weeks, we've been out here just as we have. The ask has been for those of us, that's okay. The ask has been for those of us who are freedom fighting, freedom lovers, to join with our brothers and sisters across the United States, some 40 other states and the District of Columbia. People all over this country are gathering in their state capitals and at the capital of our United States. We are gathered around 5 pillars of work and responsibility that we've asked folk to join us in these gatherings, these initiatives across the state. We say there still is a problem 50 years later. You all know that Dr. King started organizing the original Poor People's Campaign 50 years ago. And he said that there were 3 triplets of evil that dogged this United States of America. He said racism, militarism, and materialism were bad news for the United States. 50 years later, racism, poverty, the war economy, ecological devastation, and just the sheer right and wrong morality conversation, which we don't have, or the lack of morality that we don't have in this country. We spend more time on the tweets of a certain somebody down in Washington, D.C. than the actual issues that are facing black and brown and poor people across this country. Talk to me here. So we have gathered. We say no to that kind of legislating. We say no to the kind of last-minute shenanigans that goes on in this building. Where we were in the balance around kicking off thousands and thousands of people off of health care. Up until the last day of the legislative session here in this state.
That's right, that ain't right.
43%, 42+% of the population in the state of Connecticut live in low and impoverished wages.
Yes. That ain't right.
Do poor people have 40% of the power in this building? Absolutely not. So we are here gathered under the umbrella of the Connecticut Poor People's Campaign to put ourselves and our bodies and our voices on the line to say no to that kind of legislating, no to that kind of governing, no! We are for people on the margins, people in poverty, people who are disenfranchised, people who have maybe not the agency, that they have agency, but they don't have necessarily voice. And so some of us stand with those voices. Some of us are those voices. Yes. We're gathered together under the umbrella. Somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long. If I was at my church, that would be a more of an amen than y'all gave me just then. Yeah. Today we've come with the theme of the war economy and gun violence.
Yes.
If any of you have been following Moral Monday CT, we started right at the nexus of the Moral Monday movement and Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter has been on the front line of these issues around gun and violence and police brutality in particular.
Yes.
Amen. Not only do I want to get rid of the proliferation of guns in community, I want the popo to stop having so many guns.
That's right. That's right. Everybody. Yes.
No guns. Violence at the hand of the bullet is a no-go. And So it is clear to me, like it is, I think, for some of you, that we are in this moment now where we can put pressure on folk.
Yep.
And we can gather in spaces and places like this, and we can do civil disobedience, which is our civil right.
Yes.
To gather together, to assemble together, and to say, this is what we want, as opposed to, hello, there we go, there we go. This is what we want, as opposed to that. And so we are here. I'm going to ask a couple of my friends if they would have some words to say. Come on, Reverend. You would say a word or two. Not this one behind you. Yeah, there are a couple of reverends over here. It's the reverend crew over here.
A lot of reverends, a lot of reverends. Right,
Tell them who you are.
All right. Well, thank you, John. My name is Steve Jungkeit. I'm the senior minister of the Old Lyme Congregational Church. I also work with the Tree of Life International Fund.
Yes.
Tree of Life is working to bring awareness about the systematic injustices in Israel and Palestine and Gaza and places like this. And this is another dimension that I want to highlight right here today. I was privileged to travel to Israel and Palestine with John and with Pamela and with a whole contingent of other folks. Back in January, it was a very difficult but a very enlightening trip as well. One of the things that we learned is that so much of the violence that we have here in the United States is being exported to other places.
Yes.
So when we
Yes.
witnessed several weeks ago what happened in Gaza, that's our issue as well. That's our export. That's our violence that we're taking abroad. 4 billion of our dollars, 4 billion every single year goes to that war machine that slaughtered some 60 Palestinians at the Gaza wall and injured some 2,000 folks. That's a systematic part of what we're here to raise awareness for today. So yes, we're talking about racism. Yes, we're talking about militarism. Yes, we're talking about poverty. But we're also trying to draw awareness to the ways in which we're exporting those problems now. And we need to call that back and say, we can do better than that. And so I'm just privileged to stand with all of you today, and I'm grateful to be with all of you for an event like this and on events to come. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you.
My name is Pamela Selders, and I am one of the tri-chairs for the Poor People's Campaign here in Connecticut. And I'm just going to teach you a little song. We're going to sing 2 songs, but this is the first one. And it goes like this. There is justice somewhere. There is justice somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is justice somewhere. Okay. There is justice somewhere. You can clap your hands. There is justice somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is justice somewhere. There is peace and love somewhere. There is peace and love somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is peace and love somewhere. There is equity somewhere. There is equity somewhere. And I'm going to keep on till I find it. There is equity somewhere. There's justice. There is justice somewhere. There is justice somewhere, and I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There
I'd like to invite up to have a word from the Connecticut Gun Violence, Sarah Raskin.
Hi, I actually don't have anything prepared to say, but I just wanted...
There, yeah.
Slower.
There you go.
Thank you. This is totally off the top of my head. I wasn't prepared to speak. But I just want to tell you all 2 seconds about Connecticut Against Gun Violence, which is a statewide organization that's working hard on gun violence prevention. That includes not only things like school shootings and what happened right here in our state in Newtown, but especially includes violence that's happening on the streets in the city of Hartford every single day, violence that's happening on the streets at the hands of police officers, and gun violence that happens because unlocked guns are left where kids can get them, and kids in need end up committing suicide. So all of these are really important gun violence issues that we all need to be paying attention to. I want you to know that on June 2nd is National Wear Orange Day, which is for a young woman from Chicago, Hadaya, who was actually in the parade for Obama's inauguration, and a week later, as a 15-year-old, lost her life to gun violence in Chicago. Her friends banded together and came up with the idea that we should all wear orange in honor of her, because hunters wear orange and stay safe that way, so maybe if we all wear orange, we'll all be safe. There's not going to be an event in Hartford this year on the 2nd because it's the Puerto Rican parade, and we didn't want to compete with that. Woo woo, go to the parade. But if you want to go to a Wear Orange event, there is one at Newtown, and for students, we're providing a free bus for students from Hartford to be able to attend the Newtown event, and that'll be leaving at 3 p.m. from the Hartford Trinity Academy, and we'll return back there at 8. It's free. If you're interested, I can give you more information. But I just ask you to join with us, all the organizations in the state of Connecticut, working hard to make every person in this state safe from gun violence, no matter where that violence is coming from.
Dr. King said this. He said, if I could read it, a nation that continues year after year to spend more on military defense than it does for programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. I had to read it. I didn't want to make him quoting Dr. King. It's approaching spiritual death. 53 cents of every discretionary dollar spent in this government, this federal government, is spent on war. In the state of Connecticut, I think we passed a bill to give one of these vendors of the war economy in this state, Electric Boat, $83 million of Connecticut state tax money. That's not to include some of the other corporate interests in this state. Do I need to enumerate them?
That's a shame.
Sikorsky, Pratt and Whitney.
Call them out. Yeah, call them out.
These corporations who actually pilfer and proliferate war. I ain't hating on somebody that need a job, want to work, and got the skills. I ain't hating on that. But I am hating on the fact that there is no reason in the world. We already got 30 and 40 nuclear submarines patrolling the 7 seas. Do we need 15 more? No.
gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more.
So I understand you were involved with the original Poor People's Campaign.
Yes.
Where was that? What kind of things did you do?
The original Poor People's Campaign was in Washington, D.C. Resurrection City was on the Mall, and it was an effort to bear witness to the terrible inequalities in this country that grew out of systemic and structural racism. And this was an effort to call attention to it and to make the connection between poverty and military spending. The priorities were all wrong.
And what kind of
Still are.
What kind of things did people do in those days? What kind of activities?
Well, we held vigils in our local Pennsylvania towns. We created organized efforts to be in public places with our signs, and then we rented buses to bring people down to the Poor People's Campaign. It was in May of 1968. I think I remember those dates almost. Yeah.
So it's the same month, barely.
Yes.
And so what do you think about this new effort at the Poor People's Campaign?
I think it's absolutely essential. The American people have never dealt with the systemic structural racism that's in this country, and they need to. It is a moral issue.
If you see our show before June 2nd and you're in New York City that Saturday and going to the Left Forum, be sure to see these panels on Syria. I'll be in at least the last one. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.